Welcome to all of you to this panel discussion titled Próximamente, Working Towards Equity Within International Arts, moderated by Björn Maas, Staff Officer at 1111, and Nathalie Malfait, Program Manager of VLIR-UOS. Please welcome them with a warm applause.
Good afternoon. This will be a rather intimate session, so maybe it's interesting if you come a bit to the front and it's cozier and we can maybe see you also and we can have some interaction. So so if you want, you can come closer and people will come in also, I think. So welcome. My name is Nathalie. I'm working as a program manager for VLIR-UOS. VLIR-UOS is the umbrella organization of University Cooperation, and we are one of the co-organizers of this festival. I am very, next to my job, fascinated by contemporary art and especially by international artistic partnerships and collaborations. So it's a pleasure to have invited those people here, and we will have a very interesting conversation with them.
Thanks, Nathalie. I'm Björn Maas. I'm a staff officer at 1111, the umbrella of Flemish-speaking NGOs in Belgium. Part of my job, where I deal a lot with the question of decolonization these days, I'm passionate about the arts, and particularly performing arts, especially when it comes to collaborating from different backgrounds, cultural backgrounds, but on a level playing field, which is why I'm honored to be hosting this debate. We have three people. One's for the moment invisible, but he's a special artist. I'm sure he'll join us while we are moving along. Gerardo Salinas, to my right, is city dramaturg at this Royal Flemish Theatre House. He will be speaking to us about his own trajectory and about Próximamente as a model. Next to me is the Honorable Cecilia Kuska from Argentina, from Buenos Aires, who is currently residing between Berlin, Brussels, London, and also her take on this collaboration model will be of great interest to us. So the idea is that we don't take too much time speaking, so I'll give the floor
Yes,
back to
why
Nathalie.
did we organize this session? We believe that the sector of international solidarity should look a bit more often across the fence into the neighbor's garden, and so that we can learn how truly equal partnerships can function, and for example how artistic collaborations are taking form and how they are functioning. We can learn a lot from that. As Björn said, the common hour will be dedicated to two or maybe three captivating personalities. So we will only be asking a few broader questions so that they can do most of the talking. The common thread of the conversation will be Próximamente. As already been explained, it's a cooperative platform which has an innovative festival program. It's a collaboration between the KVS, the Royal Flemish Theatre, where we are actually, and some of the most relevant festivals, theatres and cultural organizations of Argentina, Chile, Uruguay and Brazil. And so the first question will be to Gerardo. And he will talk a bit about Próximamente and where did the idea of Próximamente comes from, how it began, and what ideas or beliefs it has been built on. The floor is yours, Gerardo.
Okay, thank you. Good afternoon to everybody, and I will explain that in English. This you have to have patience. And the second thing is, before I tell you about Próximamente, I think that it's important to share some information with you about myself and about my work, because I think that it has something to do with Próximamente. The first thing is I was born in Argentina. I was born in a very peculiar moment in Argentina. I grew up in a dictatorship. My father is one of the victims of the dictatorship in Argentina. He became a missing person from the dictatorship, desaparecido, maybe you know the name. And we had to stay at the country with my mother and my sisters. It was a very horrible time, but I learned a couple of things about that, from that. The first thing is that there are always different realities going on at the same time on the same place. For example, we were living a hidden life in a kind of constantly danger, and at the same time we were performing the normality together with other victims of the dictatorship. But at the same time, I saw people living in this normality. They were living this normality, and I saw the two realities at the same time. A group of persons living a kind of reality, and the other people living in another reality. The second thing that I learned, for me, very important was is the rise of the human rights movement and organization in Argentina. A lot of people victims of the dictatorship, the most of them women without political background of training, they took the decision to get visible, to come against the dictatorship. They were looking for their children, grandchildren, family, and they created a kind of horizontal network. And in this network, even the dictatorship got killed, a couple of them. It was not possible to stop the way that they were working because they were a broad network. There was not one leader. There were different people with responsibilities. With the time, this movement became organizations like Madres de Plaza de Mayo, Abuelas, maybe you know the names, and they reached very unbelievable things. For example, later we had the trials for the responsibles of the dictatorship, and in the trial we used the information that they recollected in the time of the dictatorship. Or they push improvement in the genetical research because they were looking for the stolen children, and this improvement were shared with another countries and other places as an example in the Balkan War. This, for me, was very important to see this group of powerless people coming together to have an impact in a very asymmetrical power relationship. These different realities and people coming together to change, to have increase the power in this relationship. These two things are part of my cultural capital and at the same time part of my identity. Later, I came to Belgium, I came to Europe, and I became an immigrant, part of the diaspora from Latin America. And when I came to Europe, I fell in love with two things in Belgium. The first one was the artistic field, a very powerful artistic field with a powerful industry, a lot of beautiful venues like this one, companies, a lot of funding. And to give you an example of the weight of this artistic field in the global artistic scene is what Brazil means for the soccer is the same that Belgium means for the contemporary art. Such a little country with such a big position in the global artistic field. Thus I came and I saw that, I fell in love with that. And the second thing is I fell in love with the diversity in Belgium. As a consequence of the colonization and the concentration of power, knowledge, and resources, people from everywhere came to Europe to look for a better future, to come closer by the knowledge in the universities, following the resources. And I like to think in the cities in Europe as a kind of bonfires. The bonfire and people coming from everywhere looking for warmth. And they are coming to this bonfire, and what is the first thing that you are doing when you come to a bonfire, you tell a story, you share a story. And for me, it was very beautiful to have the two things together. On one side, to have a very powerful machine to tell stories, the artistic field, and the second time, to have stories from everywhere to be told, to how to use this artistic field. But very soon, I found that there was almost no connection between the both realities. Again, I got confronted with a parallel situation with a different reality going on in the same place and the same time. For me, it was very important to create a connection between the two of them. I was part of the group of the immigrant, and I tried to find a way to work in the artistic field, and I had the possibility to participate in this field through a project of the Flemish government to look for people with a diverse of a different ethnical background to let these people participate in the artistic field. The name of my position, it was 20 years ago. It will be cancelled in 2 seconds today in Twitter, because my position was Allochthon Cultuurfunctionaris. That's a very horrible name. The Allochthon, I don't know if everybody understands Allochthon, but this was a reference of my ethnical background. And I had this position, the very weak position in the artistic field, and like in Argentina, I took the decision to share this little position with people with the same background, immigrant people. They were working outside the artistic field. We came together and we created horizontal structures and different projects. The most successful of this project is still exists is the Work in Progress Cooperation, WIPCOP. Is a kind of idea to bring both realities together, to put a bridge between the venues and the organization and all the population of new people telling these stories, to give us the possibility to reveal the global narrative. When we are working with all these stories together, we have the opportunity to have a more fair and honest global narrative. Okay, this project, and I'm very proud to share that to you, after 14 years, we will have for the first time structural funding from the government, WIPCOP. Okay, in this way, with this kind of project and looking for the way to bring these realities together, I came to the KVS as a part of the new artistic direction 6 years ago. And we were working with the same philosophy to try to create a big, diverse repertoire, theater place, to have the right to become the company of such a city as Brussels. It's a city where we are living together with people from 170 nationalities. This kind of very diverse repertoire and working is the thing that we are trying to do in Brussels. But at the same time, and then I'm coming to Próximamente, I have the possibility to go back to Latin America. But this time, I came to Latin America as a cultural worker from Europe, as a curator. And very soon, I got confronted again with these two realities. On the side, from the cultural curators organization, for us, we were working already with Latin America. There were festivals. Yeah. Well, it's for me? No. Okay, we were already working with Latin America. There were festivals. Place got selected, and they came to this part of the world, the center of the economy of the contemporary arts, and even some people were busy with the development of some artists. There was an interaction. But on the other side, the perception of the cultural worker in Latin America was sometimes a different perception. Because of the asymmetry of the global artistic field, the position of the European curator became stronger and bigger and bigger. They have the possibility to let people participate in the global economy of the arts. If you are working as an artist, if you want to live as an artist, it's very important in the contemporary art to come in the central part of the economy of the art. And the thing is, these curators, everybody as individual, you can only choose the things that you understand, that you like, and every time that you are picking something, like a cherry picking, you are having a big influence in the ecosystem because of the foundings, but at the same time because of the logistics. To give you an example, sometimes it's cheaper to bring a play from Lima, Peru, to Madrid than to bring the same play from Lima, Peru to Buenos Aires. Why? Because of the logistic. And another layer is once you are in Europe, you have the possibility to play in different festivals, and you have the possibility to go to different venues. This reality about the foundings, about the logistic, increase the power and the asymmetry in the relationship between the two continents, between Latin America and Europe. To look for, and another thing is this decision of the curator have a big impact in the development of the narrative, of the local narrative. This curator, they are choosing something. The young people from Latin America, they want to go to Europe to participate in the economy of the arts, and they start to imitating these theater makers. And I don't have anything against the influences. I think it's very rich to have an influence to each other. But when you have a too asymmetrical power relationship, you have the risk to become, the relationship of influence can become a relationship of colonization, of domination. And because of that, we were talking with this partner. Again, we have two realities, the reality of the international perception, international artistic field, and the perception from the peoples in Latin America. And to try to look for another way to increase the power in this asymmetrical power relationship, we came together with a couple of organizations in Latin America, with cultural workers, to look for another way to get in conversation from Latin America with Europe. And then we created this experiment, Próximamente. But maybe we can ask her to tell a little bit, otherwise I am talking a lot, like always.
Thanks, Gerardo. I think it's a good idea to bring Cecilia into the mix. My question to you, Cecilia, would be, tell us a bit more about Próximamente. How did you end up in this story? Maybe more importantly, why did you end up in the story of Próximamente? And I'm particularly interested in the fact, as we understand, of this model of collaboration, how the Latin American curators take center stage. Do you have a few words on that?
Hello, thank you. Thank you, Gerardo, for your introduction. I'm Cecilia. I'm also from Argentina. I'm second generation of immigrants from different places, from Europe and also Turkey. And just for saying brief about myself and why I work in arts. And so when I was a child, I used to ask my father where I came from, because my grandparents used to talk to me in Polish, in Ukrainian, and I was like, but I don't understand. And he used to say, like, you are from here, you have to understand. And I was like, I understand, but that immigration process that was part of my home all the time was something that made me look to other places. Because I was like, there is an identity in my family background that I can't find it where I am, but at the same time, it was there all the time. So in 2019, I moved to Europe. I was already collaborating in Próximamente, being part of the team. And when I was here, I could understand more what is being an immigrant, and also that sometimes even when you're born in a place, you can be an immigrant as well, like moving from one part of the country to another part. That is something that also happens a lot in Latin America. People that born in indigenous communities or in mixed indigenous communities, they usually feel that they are not part of some of their countries where they're born. And I feel like in the art sector, that connection between where you're born in the place in Latin America and being on the stage is changing a lot, and every time is giving more space to artists. So based on this background of my family, when I was really young, I was studying arts, and I realized the first time that I saw a performance piece from Japan, from dance piece, I realized I want to do this. I want to connect with these others that are far away. And I started working in the Buenos Aires International Festival. I worked there for 9 years. It's the biggest and the most important performing arts festival in Argentina. And while I was working in the festival, I was in Santiago Mil International Festival, which is in Santiago, Chile. And there I met Gerardo, and we start a very horizontal and dynamic conversation about arts, about how it was already the cooperation between the countries more in the south of Latin America collaborating together. And I knew all the partners that actually we are collaborating now. I collaborate with them when I was there. We used to do like co-productions between the countries, also co-productions we were inviting international artists and a lot of European artists to the region, because it was a way of reducing costs and also of improving the ways of exchanging with our audiences that are changing every city. So how we can invite someone from far away and make a good profit of that invitation. And at that moment, I was a programming assistant in the festival, and I was developing a new program for work in progresses, because I realized that there is a lack of resources, of economic resources in the country. And so artists, sometimes they don't know how to make more internationalization of their works. Exactly what Gerardo said, like for them it's really important to tour internationally, because it's the only way that they can get an income that makes them to keep living as artists, because usually they have to work or giving lessons or in other things for funding their own works, because there is public funding, of course, and there are also good cultural policies there, but it's not so easy to get enough funding for living as an artist. I mean, only a few of them can make it, but not everyone. So at that moment, I felt really responsible as cultural manager working in the international festival for finding like new ways of cooperation, of international cooperation for the artists. And I also believe, and it's part of this Próximamente project, that we also think that cultural managers are also artists, because we are working together, and it's not about us, it's about we, because we don't exist without artists, and artists, they need also our work to improve the context in which they can produce and produce more and in a better way. So we met with these colleagues. I also introduced to Gerardo some of the colleagues that I knew, for example, from Brazil, because I worked with them before. And it was a moment that we were also reshaping the way of talking between us in these countries in South America. And so it was a really, I think, perfect moment for rethink how we could cooperate there and in this connection with here. And I feel, in my personal experience, and also with these colleagues, that working from a place that is far away from what is usually considered the center, you have to develop all the time new ways of being connected to that center. So it was really good to meet all of us in that festival and start this conversation of how could we do something for the artists, for our community, and also for linking with the artists that are here. Because the idea of this festival is not only inviting artists from one part of the world to another part of the world, it's how we are all together in the same place, and how these powerful tools that have curating, because as Gerardo said, curating is something really powerful. What is yes, what is not, when, and how much. There is not a global balance of that. So it was okay, how we rethink, how we do it there, how we connect with another place, and how we make it better. So for me, it was really inspiring, joining the platform, because it's more than a festival, it's a platform, because we work over the year as well. And yeah, and also when I started, I was living in Argentina, and then I moved here. And it was also really important for me as a cultural worker to be already working in a platform like this when I moved to Europe, because it gave me a lot of energy, and it's more than energy, but energy is a good definition as well, for feeling more confident, because I was an immigrant, I kind of starting again, but not again. So having a spot in a platform where everyone is equal, for me, was really important. So more about the platform, the curation that we build together is people that is in Latin America, there is organizations, public, private, and also cultural workers. They start a conversation about which artists we could invite. Now it's Argentina, Brazil, Uruguay, and Chile. The idea is joining more countries in the future, but what we know is that every time that we invite a new country or a new country wants to join us, we need or a cultural worker or an organization that will go with the artists as well. So they are not alone, coming to another place in the world to perform. It's how we build all the whole conversation before they arrive to Europe. How we give them resources and tools for how they should prepare themselves for their communication, or everything in relation to distribution, production. We work the whole year with them. So that's why it's also really important that those curators that are there are with us, and we are remotely for a year, but then we are together when we meet in the festival moment here. And other things that we had, for example, the last year, because this creation of this platform was before pandemic, and actually it's important because now it's more expensive, more difficult to go far away. So having a festival like this in the center of Europe is really important for all these artists to meet a lot of people, because we create also a kind of showcase. So last edition we had 10 residencies of new projects, 2 co-productions, and then I think it was 3-4 shows that were finished. And other thing that we did, we took the responsibility of talking with partners in Belgium, but also in Europe, to invite these artists, because these artists, they don't belong to us. They belong to the world, actually, artists from everywhere in the world. And also, that's also a different approach of how we curate. We take care, and it's they don't belong to me, they don't belong to this venue, they are part of a global context. We are creating in a global context all the time. We are not isolated creating, even when we take distance and we take time for creating, maybe in a residency space. But we build a whole context for bringing them, and also we make it more environmental, because if an artist is coming from far away, then they go to other places. And that's also an extra tool for their distributors that are in Latin America, that they can travel often, because as Gerardo mentioned before, It's not really easy to travel there because there are not trains connecting every city, even in the same country, so it's expensive. So every time that you can afford like traveling is great, but even the curators there, they don't have enough funding for going to other festivals all the time. So it's now this power of curation is a collective power that we share. And also it's really interesting because as we have these colleagues from different countries, we talk a lot about the artists that are there that maybe are not necessarily the ones that at the end they come here. It's like we discuss and we learn from each other all the time. We send each other like recommendations. We talk about other events that are happening in their countries. And it's also when we do the festival here, we invite those curators to talk about other artists that they couldn't come because it's impossible to invite all the artists that we would like to invite. And we also ask the artists that they come here to talk about artists that didn't come. So it's like, can you please select a few artists from your content, from your city or from your country, and tell us more about them and about those companies? So it's a really dynamic circle of collaborating. And it's important, this idea of horizontality, because there is an horizontality between us in the team, but also with the artists. There's not this a speech between, oh, the curator will only talk with the artists. Like, we are all the same, and the artists are part of that way of working, and we have a really like constant conversation with them. Even when after the festival, they usually call us, ask us for some ideas, like, I will tour in this, I have been invited to this festival after Próximamente, what do you think, how should I communicate this and that? So we are in a constant communication with everyone in the team.
Okay, thank you very much. That's already very rich. There's a lot of elements in both your stories that could inspire us in the development sector. Of course, you talk of a holistic approach, of going the extra mile, of taking care of the partners you work with, looking at the broader ecosystem that partners or artists operate in, not just consider the one individual hotshot that you can tick on your box of your festival. You look really at the whole ecosystem of that. Very interesting. There's a lot of takeaways from that way of collaborating, that generosity that you bring to the table. Now, is this something that comes from Latin America in the way you operate? Is this something that's quite usual in the context where you come from, in Buenos Aires? And has that something that has impacted on the way a Belgian festival does things? Or how has that impacted each other? That collectivity, that collective dynamic that you speak of, what can we learn from that further?
I will say the Latin American part and you can say the Belgian part. Yeah, I feel totally when you, for example, in the performing arts, when you ask, we, for example, what we usually don't have is like a legal entity as a company. So maybe you work for 10 or 20 years with the same people, like a company, but we decide to work together. And for example, we don't have enough funding for paying rehearsals to artists, because, there is not in the economies in Latin America. So only a few cases of artists that they receive co-production from Europe, they can afford like working 6 months in a new creation, but most of the artists, for example, they are creating in a long period, collaborating with the people that is creating with them, because at the end is that. You are trusting the director who is asking you to work. Usually, we became all really good friends because we spend a lot of time together. And usually, you finish the piece, like there are like really long periods of rehearsing, but you finish it when you get the resources for finishing it, like a presentation in a festival or a venue that finally said, okay, we will host your new work. So there is always this dynamic of collaborating between us because lack of resources, economic resources. And so we're which is really good, but sometimes can be tricky because people has to work in other things, and maybe rehearsals are really late at night and not during the daylight, and it's a really tiring process. And you are and you need to be a good team leader when you are producing or directing these teams, because everyone is giving their time to you, and so it is as well a horizontal way of working.
And I see that not only in the artistic field, because of that I took the decision to tell you about the human rights movement. I think this is something in a, I was last week for 2 weeks on an artistic residency in Buenos Aires, and I went to Buenos Aires with a company from the KVS, Junior Caesar is one of the companies, and we were looking for a creation. And the first thing that they were impressed about was the way of organization of the people, different things. If we don't have the, I don't know, the founding, or if we don't have the structure to do the things, we come together, we create a structure. And because of that was very important to say even housewife, women without a political background, they were allowed to create an own structure to change the political situation in Latin America. A group of women and housewife in the 70s. And the same way we were working together, I think that there is some cultural thing that we are using all the time. Sometimes some people are abusing of that. Like you say, you have to, everybody knows that we will look for a solution, okay, the way to pay till we find the solution without money. This, we have it's a negative side of that, but at the other side, I think it's a nice way to, yes, to make question to our own way to see our career and the power. For example, we are working in this structure, Próximamente, and we are the KVS. We have more funding than the other partners. We are in Europe, we have more funding, and when we come together on a table to make the decision to put the logos, the mark, the trademark, and on paper, we have to have a kind of deconstruction as KVS to put our logo on the same. It's a conversation. It's not something that you are doing. You are putting the money, and because of that, you want to be recognized normally. It's the way that we are working. And to look for a deconstruction about the different ways that we have the capital, because we have the financial capital, we have the founding, we have the venue, but at the same time, there are cultural capital too, there are symbolic capital too. And we were looking for a way to try to create an equal way to work together, even if the economical conditions were, such a different conditions. And it's something that we have to learn now, I think, in a global world, to learn to look for another way of capital, of I don't know, a profit that we can have beside the economical profit. And I think that this is the most important thing that we can learn from other people, and because of that, I was telling about my own experience as immigrant. I think that sometimes the immigrant in the new context, they are a bridge to different ways to work, to see the things. And that is, I don't know, it's more or less.
Yeah, I will add something that a few years ago I was programming in the Ministry of Culture in Buenos Aires, and I invited for first time a Belgian theater company to come to a city, to an amazing cultural space, really big, and it was the first time that there was a performance in another language there. And what I explained this company, because they had funding for touring internationally, is that we couldn't pay like a fixed fee, that they should come under the system that we have, that is, you get the 80% of the income. So most of the artists in Argentina, they work under those conditions without any insurance fee, nothing. And they say, yeah, okay, let's do it because we have this funding from the Flemish part of Belgium. And they came, and the experience for them, I feel, they still like talk about that to me. It was amazing, and also for our audience was amazing. And I feel that when we invite these artists and we link them with the audience in Brussels, also that magic happens. And it's really important, I feel, in these really deep times of reflections and new beginnings, that we connect with other artistic manifestations that are maybe not the ones that we usually see in the places where we are based, because we need to open conversations in the wider way, and that's why it's important to keep doing like these kind of events, connecting people, because also, for example, for the diaspora that is in Belgium, that last edition we started working with the diaspora, and they were also doing residencies, and they were also like big part of our audience. For them was really important to meet again with artists that coming from the countries where they were born. And as Gerardo said at the beginning, like Brussels, only about Brussels, but I mean Belgium and every city, big city in Europe nowadays, is really mixed, as the same as is Latin America. And in that mix, it's good to listen all the voices that you have in the mix. And for that, I feel it's also important to invite artists from other places that are more far away.
Thank you, Cecilia. I have one more question, and you already mentioned it. But normally you would have been talking also to Pitcho, Womba, Konga. He has a Congolese background. You have an Argentinian background. And you were talking already about the diaspora and about the power of the diaspora. And could you elaborate a bit more about how you see this evolving in the future, this movement of diaspora in the cultural sector, and how you will be organizing things?
I think, and I like to think in the artistic field as a global thing, because we are living in a global world. We are using Facebook, of drinking Coke, we are living in a global world, and sometimes we are putting frontiers for some things. Sometimes for the very good things. And for the other things, we let it go from here to there, till there. I think that we have to connect with all the different spots in the world to rebuild the narrative, the global narrative, to become a more human world. And I think that for this goal, it's very important to work together with the diaspora. The diaspora, they are the bridges to connect with the real feeling in the different sites, in the different spots. And for us, as Próximamente, we are looking for a way to first to create an organization, a stable organization with a future, to create this cooperative, to have respect for all the partners and all the positions, to develop a common vision. It's very important for us. But once that we got more or less the method, we want to open this platform for another partners in the same countries, for new countries in Latin America, because we are already in conversation for the next edition with other countries. But in the future, we want to open this platform for another continent. We are already talking with 3 African countries, artistic partners, to let them come in this conversation to help us to have a new vision about what it means, a new international artistic field, and to exchange the experience of the asymmetrical power relationships. This, I think that, for example, this conversation about partners from Congo, we start this conversation with Pitcho. He's living here. He has already a festival from the diaspora in Brussels, Congolización. It's a very strong festival. something beautiful from the diaspora, from the migration. I think this, if you are in the right way, if you migrated in the right way and you choose to be there, you love both places. And when you try to build something, you try to care about the both places. For me, when I'm doing something with Latin America, for me it's very important that that there will be care for Latin America, for the people there. But at the same time, I love Belgium. I feel my identity is a very fluid identity. I feel Argentinian and Belgian together. And I try to do something positive for Belgium too. And I think that this kind of love, and you have a lot of people with this kind of relationship like Pitcho, I don't know. Even, for example, we are talking about working together with Senegal, with Alessandra Sötting. She's now the, one of the artistic directors of the École des Sables, and one of the most powerful dance schools in Africa, but she's living in Europe, and we are talking together and looking for a way to connect the things with love for both of them. And we are not fighting against each other. We want, it's like the, sometimes when you think in feminism, they are not looking for a new machismo. They are looking for a world with everybody is being happy and with the same rights. We are looking for the same. We are connecting different realities. We are all humans, and we are trying to create a better narrative of the togetherness of the world.
Okay. Thanks. It's a beautiful one. We have another 5 minutes. So I want to give you the chance to maybe some final words connecting what you've experienced in those last few years working together. You've given us some future perspective also how you want to include other regions in the world also in that experience. My final question would be around make it maybe tangible. Like, is there an experience that happened around the festival where that connection between cultures and between, you know, different experiences really became very rich? Or if someone in the room has a pressing question, I'll make room for that as well. But maybe think about it. Tangible experience from Próximamente that would help us understand?
We are thinking the same. Last year we produced a show of an Argentinian director, Fernando Rubio. He's really known as a site-specific shows, performing arts shows director, and most of his work he produced it working with a local cast or local actor. And we did this performance, site-specific duration of performance, because it was a 5-day, 24 hours, sorry, my Spanish, performance on public space. And with Pitcho, that was our guest that had a problem and couldn't arrive on time. And the idea of this show is every day, like many things happen, and then one of the activities is like the artists receive an unknown person in his life, and they exchange during an hour. And what we decide with the team, it was like every day the Pitcho, Congolese, Belgium artist was going to receive one artist from the different countries that are involved in the festival, and they were all artists. And every situation was totally different, of course, because there were different people there, but also everyone was bringing something of their personal stories and their personal cultural background. And it was really interesting, and also what happened with the Brazilian colleague that was there, like the different approaches of the same topics in different parts of the world. And that exchange, and being able to be as an audience there, like listening, and like artists were learning from other artists, the audience was learning from them, and they were also learning from the audience. And that experience for us was connecting like many many places in one magical place, like set in the public space in Brussels. And for me, it was a really emotional and sensitive moment of the festival.
And also we have the possibility to think outside the boxes. For example, one of the nights was a little bit edgy because of the COVID, but was before the quarantine. This was legal and okay. Came a couple of people to do a freestyle, friends of Pitcho from Molenbeek. They came to this installation and they start to make improvisation with a very simple beat. It was an improvisation. And they start to sing about the reality and the tough reality of the people from Molenbeek in Brussels and everything. But at the same time, all the artists from Latin America, they were there, they came into the place and they start to dance. A very performative dance and dance together. And for this guy, this wasn't, the rappers was another kind of reaction of what they were doing. And this kind of reaction from both of them was a way to give them another position together. It's not the same position, okay, I'm Congolese of a Moroccan from Molenbeek, with Moroccan roots from Molenbeek, doing my rap. At the same time, it became a little beautiful Tomorrowland. And everybody was dancing and knowing each other in another way. And then you have the possibility to look to yourself in another way, with the eyes from somebody from Brazil or from Argentina, and at the same time, the same for this artist. It was a very, very touching moment. I was at the same time a little bit worried about the COVID, but was one of the most beautiful moments, the meeting.
Thank you. You shared great stories of love, of celebration, of horizontal ways of collaborating, of being very open to each other, going the extra mile. I think there's been a few takeaways from your stories for our sector. We're about at the end of our time. Do you want to wrap up?
Wrap up.
Or any pressing question from the audience? Yasser will allow me one question, I'm sure, from what you've heard.
Is there a message you want to give to other artists who want to start collaborating with different countries? Where do they start?
Yes, the message is very easy one, and the message was in the beginning of my story. Even you are in a dictatorship, in the horror, living without power. If you come together with other people, you get strong. You can change the game. Go for it. Come together with other people. And the real enemy, outside the economy and everything, is your own ego. This is the biggest enemy. If you accept to share the price, the money, the power, you are changing the game, because that is the game. The only thing that we have to change is the way to work together. Once, if I'm coming, because of that, I'm not against the European curators. I'm also an European curator. But when we are coming with a contract to Latin America, we have a big impact in the ecology of this ecosystem, because we are picking something and we are creating the idea that you have to be an exceptional individual to have the possibility to come, instead to become an exceptional ecosystem. This is I think this is a big challenge also for Belgium. For me, and I don't see the difference outside the law and the money, but I don't see a difference between the way that we are working in Brussels and the way that we are working in Latin America. We are all human, and we have to fight against from different positions, against the same things. And the biggest enemy, I repeat that, is the ego.
Thank you. Nice closure.
Yeah.
I hope you all enjoyed this looking over the fence session. We will be collaborating more in the future, I think, between our organizations. Thank you very much. Have a coffee and then stay for the next interesting sessions.
Okay.